Well, our guest today is praised as the punk rock Julia Child of the Net Generation. TV chef and comedian Nadia G joins us on this episode of Film Courage, infusing rock and roll, amazing culinary skills, and really cool outfits. Nadia G's Bitchin' Kitchen debuted in 2007 as a 3-minute mobile cooking show.
With smashing success, the show quickly gained the attention of mainstream broadcast media, giving way to the 2010 Bitchin' Kitchen premiere on Food and Lifestyle Entertainment brand to transition from web to television.
Very cool. In October 2010, Bitchin' Kitchen made its American debut on the Cooking Channel. In addition, Nadia's best-selling book, Bitchin' Kitchen Cookbook, Rock Your Kitchen and Let the Boys Clean Up the Mess, was released in 2009. I like that.
And I know you love that little tagline there.
I actually know what I was making you do. Wow.
Some of the chapters include one-night stand breakfasts, PMS capades, and broke-ass dishes.
Nadia's Bitchin' Kitchen has not only infused the Food Network and Cooking Channel with a bad girl brand of humor and know-how, but the whole Bitchin' DIY approach is introduced to viewers on Nadia's site, bitchinlifestyle.tv, where you'll find cool kitchen gear, t-shirts, videos, and bitchin' culture. Please welcome to Film Courage via telephone, the lovely Nadia G. Hello, Nadia.
We love it.
You know, we're excited ourselves, and we just want to sort of, relay that to our audience listening in today.
We've been looking for it.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Happy to be here.
We're excited to have you. Our first question goes to our listeners. Do you love to cook? What is your go-to dish? If you were trying to impress someone special, what meal would you cook? Please send us a tweet with the hashtag Film Courage, and can you also please add at Bitchin' Kitchen? Maybe Nadia G herself will sort of respond and give you some pointers. And if you want to follow along the conversation online, you can go to tweetchat.com. Just type in the hashtag Film Courage. And for those of you not on Twitter, you're welcome to reach out to us on Facebook or filmcourage.com.
Well, again, thank you, Nadia, for joining us today. We've been looking forward to this interview for a very long time, so very excited. Now, I understand you grew up, is it St. Leonard? It's a conservative borough of Montreal, Quebec?
Yeah, that's right. It's an Italian borough. It's, what's really interesting is that when we launched the show in the States, a lot of people are like, what's that accent? Is it Brooklyn? Is it New Jersey? And we're like, no, it's actually St. Leonard. And what's interesting about this, there's a lot of second-generation Italians in St. Leonard, parents fresh off the boat, the kids are born. So a lot of us speak Italian, anch'io parlo italiano ancora adesso.
Wow.
It's so, there's a really interesting and peculiar accent in St. Leonard, and in fact, it even goes beyond the accent, and it's almost like its own freaking language. And in the back of my cookbook, you'll find, a glossary of terms, if you will, for all the kind of stuff that we say. Also, we have web clips called Word of the Day, which help people figure out what the hell I'm talking about with words like discombobulated or me or anyways. It's interesting stuff.
That's really cool. Yeah, and I know you have T-shirts too. Growing up in a town that's conservative, for myself, I grew up in something like that as well. And I was into punk rock and roll, and you get treated a little differently, especially if you're a girl. Was this the case for you?
Oh man, you better believe it. It was crazy, and not to mention, back in the day, the high school I went to was Catholic. Now they've kind of separated church and state when it comes to education. But, it was definitely a conservative mentality, and, I realized at a very young age that, it wasn't for me, the white picket fence and suburban, kind of polite lifestyle. I had my own vision of who I wanted to be and where I wanted to go, and it certainly wasn't accepted in St. Leonard. And like you said, especially being a girl,
right.
People didn't like it. And I shaved it was quite crazy. Shaved head, a bunch of tattoos. You don't see that in St. Leonard. No, certainly not in the early '90s, and still to this day, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think it scares people. They don't know where to categorize you. It freaks people out a little bit. Now, there are millions of people who dream of making it in entertainment, and there's so few who do. It's a tough thing. So first off, where does your work ethic come from, and what do you think separates you from the many who have come short on their dreams?
Oh, wow. You know, that's a really great question. And I would have to say, you know, when I was a teenager, I kind of, you know, it all ties in together. I kind of rebelled against the mainstream. But while doing that, I had to say to myself, well, what's worth living for? Like, what excites me? And that's where entertainment came in. And what was so wonderful about, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s was that the internet was around. So, you know, if you have a dream, you can really materialize it online. You don't have to wait for someone to greenlight your project, and it kind of gives you that instant satisfaction of putting up a site. You know, you see people are watching your videos, you get some kind of comment response. So even though you're not making it in the big time, you still feel like you're moving ahead, and people are seeing, you know, your project and responding to it. Now, in terms of work ethic, I mean, I guess I'm just a workhorse, you know, and like they say, you know, when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. Now, sometimes, but sometimes it really does feel like work, and there is a lot of hard work involved. I gotta say that, you know, we launched our show on Cooking Channel last fall, and I mean, prior to that, I mean, I've been doing, you know, videos online and working on entertainment projects since 2001. So, you know, calculate that paycheck.
Right.
It's basically no money and investing all your time and all your energy for, you know, almost 10 years.
We are on the line with host of Bitchin Kitchen, Nadia G. And we'd like to talk a little bit more about your beginnings, Nadia. But before we do, we'd like to talk about your life right now. You mentioned the cooking channel. Can you sort of paint a picture for us? How many people do you have on your team right now that help you produce Bitchin Kitchen? You know, what is your kitchen studio like in your office space? Can you just sort of paint the picture for us?
Sure, and I'll just give you a comparative. So when we first started this project, it was me and my partner sitting across from each other on one desk, working about 12 to 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now I would say we have a dedicated web team. We have an office with our web team, which has about 5 employees. And then we have our production team. When we produce the TV show, I would say that we're about 20 when it's time to shoot the TV series. And then there's myself, who works from my home office, you know, writing the scripts and kind of overseeing the social media strategy and all those good things, designing merch. So I would say, you know, our core team is about, you know, under 10 people, and when it's time to go into production, you're looking at about, you know, 20 plus.
Okay.
And how has this sort of the studio, you know, your kitchen and your office space, how has that changed?
Oh man, I'll give you another comparative on that one. Basically, when we first started Bitchin Kitchen as a web series, I had a dressing room made of cardboard, and my crew was so nice to me that they even took the time to draw a crappy star on a loose leaf and write Nadia G on it, and tack that to the cardboard dressing room. And now, I mean, we have our own studio. We built our own studio, so it's about 2,000 square feet, you know, really wild kitchen design, gorgeous, you know, retro-looking fridge and stove, bright cherry red with chrome, you know, a custom countertop. But the thing is, you know, is that I have a lot of crafty people on my crew, and together we have a lot of vision, and we kind of put it down on paper and make it happen. You know, not everything has to cost $1 million. If you're willing to get your hands dirty, you can make things look pretty damn fine on a limited budget.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go back to early 2000 or 2001. Now, you did these web videos. First off, there's really none of them circulating out there. I haven't found any. Are they still online?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the videos that we redid is I used to do a lot of comedy songs. So I did this song called I'm Never Drinking Like That Again. And it was such an awesome experience to be able to take that song and redo it for the TV show. It appears actually in Rehab Recipes. The whole last act is devoted to a music video, which is super cool. Definitely the first music video to ever air on a cooking show, I'd say.
Okay, very cool.
Love that idea, Rehab Recipes.
So,
yeah.
So tell us about these videos. I mean, did you have sort of this specific purpose of using the internet to eventually get yourself on TV, or it was just a fun thing you were doing with friends, you wanted to be creative?
No, there was always the purpose for it to be multi-platform and get on TV. I think that's important. And one of the things that I did back then, and that we still did with Bitchin Kitchen, is that when we created webisodes, you gotta think of them in terms of television production value. Again, on a budget, and figure out how to do that. But some people kind of believe that, or at least a few years ago, now it's a little different, that, web entertainment can be crappier or the edits can be less tight. The fact of the matter is that if you're aiming for TV, you got to shoot stuff that looks TV worthy. The fact is, people don't have much imagination. Especially when you're pitching a project, they don't have time, imagination, patience. So you got to be able to show them a product that's television worthy, so they can visualize the transition.
Once you had the idea for Bitchin Kitchen, when did you know that this could really be something special? Like how soon before you realized?
Well, one thing that clued me in right away, like when I tell people the title, it's kind of like, title or elevator pitch. Everyone was really, really excited. I myself have a lot of friends in the biz here in Montreal, so we were passing around the pitch document and just saw, people's faces light up and say, wow, because at the end of the day, the cooking space is one that was generally vanilla, and there really is a real hunger, pardon the cheesy pun, for something a little bit more rock and roll. Like, it's not everybody that wants to cook in the cardigan. And for me, it was also just a really, I think people really enjoyed the high concept of it too. Like, what's interesting is this show is truly a hybrid. It's a scripted comedy cooking show, and there's Alton Brown, he kind of does his thing, which was very inspiring for me. That was one of the people that inspired me for sure. I said, wow, this guy's doing something different with the cooking platform. But yeah, I mean, people had a great reaction straight away.
It makes me wonder, especially because you do bring up, sort of the production value, you mentioned you don't have to spend $1 million, but at the same time, there is money that needs to be invested. So how long before you had the idea that you sort of went out, either invested yourself or found investors for sort of this rock and roll kitchen that you're talking about? Because, the early videos that we see that you have online, I mean, this is sort of, it's an imaginative, high quality production. This isn't like you just showing up and filming like in your grandmother's kitchen.
On a mini TV, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it basically, like, all the experience that I had gained throughout the years in terms of doing web video was then applied to this project. And then when we passed the pitch document around for this project, Airborne Entertainment, which does mobile content and has a connection with Verizon VCast, totally loved it. And we actually got an initial budget, I would say, of about $30,000 Canadian, to produce 26 mobisodes. And what I did, and I still do to this day, is like I reinvest all that money. Like the Mobus, they gave us $30,000. We ended up spending the equivalent of like 67, double the amount, whether it was not necessarily physical cash, but also time investment. So it's like that old thing, quick, cheap, and good. Pick two. So if you don't have the money, you're going to have to invest the time.
You have these webisodes, and then how does it end up in the lap of the cooking channel? Was there a contest, or how did this happen?
No, we pitched,
Okay.
we pitched Food Network Canada first, and they saw that it was a great success online. We had a tangible proof of concept, and they went for it, And it was tough, man. Let me tell you, because back in 2007, while we had our mobisodes and webisodes, but we were simultaneously, trying to pitch networks. We went down to LA, and agents down there loved the show, but they were like, "Listen, man, this, you can't put this show on Food Network because it's way too crazy and there's comedy in it. You can't put this show on a comedy network because there's food in it." And they were like, "Basically, you guys are screwed. Like, do you have a reality show concept for us?"
Wow.
And we were like, reality show? We were like, man, what reality show? The reality is I sit in front of my computer 15 hours a day trying to get this business off the ground. Doesn't make for exactly, a groundbreaking television here. So we stuck to our guns, though, and like that was a real hard moment for us because they were like, this show is impossible to sell. And, but we stuck to it, and eventually the times caught up with us.
You're going to the mobile market. I mean, was that something you were excited about, or like, was there something inside of you where you're like, you know what, this is, I am moving forward, but at the same time, I really want to be on television. I mean, did that fuel you at all?
Of course. But, back then also I was so happy that someone, sometimes it's not the amount of the paycheck, but it's just like finally getting someone to give you a budget. It gives you that, feeling that you're on the right track, and definitely heading in the right direction. So although, I obviously did feel like, wow, I can't wait for this to be the TV show, I still was pretty stoked that someone other than myself was willing to invest time and money in this project. And I knew that this was going to be a big stepping stone. And one thing that's always interested me, besides the production aspect and the creative aspect, is marketing. And man, I know how to make a mountain out of a molehill. This is one of the biggest skills you need in this business. Sometimes it's less about the quality of your product and more about how you talk about it. Look, we all know the kind of content that we see on TV or the people that have risen to celebrity. It's a marketing machine. It's not always necessarily 100% about the content itself. So I knew that by having, mobisodes out there, I could have not only a proof of concept, but something to talk about. And we would enter all kinds of contests and competitions. I mean, we won favorite mobile comedy series. And, this wasn't a huge award. It was a wave award, but man, did we make noise about that. We beat out Conan O'Brien. We were touting that left, right, and center. I mean, Conan probably didn't even know he was nominated for a wave award. But, it's all about, just getting those awards and just kind of using whatever you have to your advantage at the moment.
It sounds like you didn't rest on the fact that that you had these mobile episodes, that you were going to take this and use this as a way to sort of leverage yourself and push yourself further. So how soon in the process where you were releasing these mobisodes, how soon before you began pitching the networks and saying, like, look, this is the quality of what I can do for you?
Well, it started pretty soon after. I would say after we won that Wave Award, which was like a few months into the launch of our mobile series, we contacted an entertainment lawyer friend of ours in LA, and then he set up a bunch of meetings with agencies. We ended up getting hip pocketed by Endeavor back in the day, but the climate wasn't ready yet. The TV climate wasn't ready yet for Bitchin Kitchen for the reasons I mentioned earlier. And then while we were, being pitched in LA and seeing that we weren't getting much response, and people were saying, well, do you want to do a reality show? This company in Canada, this production company in Canada called Tricon, gave us a call and said, man, we heard about you, and there's a big buzz, and, you know, we have a good relationship with Food Network Canada. We've produced hit shows for them. Can you please let us pitch you? We're going to meet with Food Network Canada. And we were like, oh, I don't know, you know. So we asked Endeavor if they thought it was okay, which is now Endeavor William Morris, and they were like, yeah, sure, Canada who? And so we were like, all right then, you know, we'll pitch in Canada, and lo and behold, they made it happen. You know, they really made it happen.
So in your infancy stage, you know, was it sort of your attitude of we're gonna grow this thing to be so big that whoever's who in TV, they're gonna have to they're gonna take notice of what we're doing? Was that part of your sort of attitude and part of your strategy?
Oh, absolutely, man. You know, like, just bullish. It's you just one-track minded. And yes, I said to myself, this is, you know, we're going to build the community and you know, just get a real proof of concept and just keep going at it until people kind of have to say yes, because A, you're not going away, and B, you're not going away.
You are tuned to Film Courage on latalkradio.com. We would like to extend our gratitude to Peter Ong Lim, who dazzles us with his generosity as the only person who has donated twice to Film Courage.
What else can we say about Mr. Peter Ong Lim? He loves supporting those in the indie film community. He's incredibly bright, and he's someone you should be connected with. Find him on Facebook at Peter Ong Lim and connect with him on Twitter at POLMD. I'm sorry, at Film POLM, and I forgot the film part. We're on the line with Nadia G, host of the cooking channel's Bitchin Kitchen. We've mentioned this in this interview, and we've seen it elsewhere, where, you know, you've put in countless hours every day, you know, long days, 10-hour days, 12-hour days, 15-hour days. How often did you doubt that you would be where you are now? I mean,
you know, there were a few moments. There's always a few moments where you totally say to yourself, man, what am I doing here? What's going on? But ultimately, deep inside, I always knew that this was going to happen. You know, and frankly, if you don't have that 99% of the time, you're sure that it's going to happen for you, it's tough to make it happen, honestly, because at times you got nothing but sheer will, the sheer, you know, to force something into existence. And, you know, I always had, you know, people that helped encourage me along the way. It's so important when things are bad. Like, I'll give you an example. In a crappy studio with a cardboard dressing room with no air conditioning, in 4-inch heels, sniffing soup and saying, it smells so good. Take 52. You know, it's like 60 degrees in the studio. There's times like that, you know, where you're like, wow, what the hell's going on here? But no matter how down I got, like I said, 99% of the time I visualized this happening. I knew this was going to happen, and I was going to make it happen. And so it goes.
Where does that self-assurance come from?
You know, I think it comes ultimately from my parents. You know, I was an only child. They always gave me a ton of attention. You know, they allowed my creativity to bloom as a kid. The teenage years was a different story, as I mentioned before. But, you know, the early years are the important years. And my family was always kind of treating me like a rock star.
Interesting. And so you're picked up by Food Network Canada. How did they contact you? And when they did, what kind of emotions were running through you? And what were you thinking? Were you scared? Were you happy?
Wow, man, I'll tell you, you know, that story of Food Network Canada was really something. We had gotten word from Tricon that they wanted to move ahead with the show, but, you know, nothing was signed on paper yet. You know, it takes forever to get contracts actually signed. You know, in fact, you can have a show on the air for 6 episodes before a contract is signed. So it was taking a long time to finally get everything finalized. And then what happened was that we knew they were interested in a show, and then doesn't freaking Can West, which is the company that owns Food Network Canada and Global TV and like practically every single TV station in Canada, aren't they going bankrupt? Oh. So I'm saying to myself, what the hell? Finally, I get my TV series, and the whole freaking, what luck is that?
Yeah.
The TV, that the whole industry is going bankrupt. So we were freaking out, and we were running out of money because we were basically living off a Canadian grant telefilm for our web series and website, etc. And that money was starting to come to an end, and we had to let so many people go and say, listen, the show is still not happening yet, and the whole world is crumbling. And so me and Josh, my partner, were sitting there, and we're super depressed, working late at night, and it's about midnight, and we get a call from one of the guys that was working with us saying, yeah, Josh, so what's up? And Josh was like, what do you mean, what's up? It's midnight. I don't know. We're working. Nothing's up. What are you trying to say? He's like, yeah, well, I saw in Playback magazine that Bitchin Kitchen got picked up on Food Network Canada. And we're like, what?
Wow.
So we essentially found out, after everybody else. And we were so happy. I mean, crying and screaming for joy. And it's really emotional, this business, as you both know, and probably a lot of people listening in. Like, this is your life, man. It's not a career. It's not a hobby. This is you. This is it. When your project suffers, you suffer. It's your child. So, I mean, we're like, our baby got into Harvard.
What was different, Nadia, about when you're sort of up and running on the Food Network Canada, what was different about being in that space as opposed when you were launching these webisodes? What were the tangible factors that I guess that network, Food Network Canada wanted to be a part of? What did you have then?
Well, it was great because we had a bigger budget, so we were able to, flex our creative muscles a little bit more. As I mentioned earlier, we were able to shoot take rehab recipes to the next level and insert a music video in there, because with the web clips, you only have 3 to 5 minutes, so it's like, you gotta pick what you're going to show. You can't exactly devote the whole thing to a music video. So we were super excited. It was also kind of scary. I mean, that first time when your show launches and you start people start talking smack about you. Oh man, now I'm used to it. Whatever, it rolls off my back. I find out the person's IP address, and one day we'll talk. But back then, man, it was, you get it hits you hard, sure. So, I mean, what was great was that we had a bigger budget, but we also had, bigger pressure. Like, you really want it to be great, and this is your chance now, because the thing with this business, as we all know, it's really nice when you finally get your show greenlit. But then your show's gotta not get canceled.
Right.
Then you gotta do numbers. You gotta get renewed for a second season. So the pressure continues.
Before the TV deal, did you have any sponsorship deals worked out, like with cookware companies, knife outlets, what have you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was all product-only sponsorship, and I mean, it was amazing, the kind of sponsorship and how amenable people were. Like Elmira Stoveworks, which creates those gorgeous vintage-looking fridge, stove, appliances, etc. Man, they sponsored us from day one. Wow. Even when it was just a web series, and like you're talking about, $10,000 worth of appliances. So yeah, we did have sponsorship, our knives as well. We still use, and we still stick to these people to this day. Mm-hmm. To this day, there's Elmira Stoveworks on our set. There's Kasumi knives that I always use, and Demayer cookware, etc. So there's a lot of these these sponsors that were there from the beginning, we definitely take along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. How early in the game were you engaged in social media? I mean, you're on YouTube, of course, but I mean, you have this huge Facebook and Twitter following. How early did that come into play?
Oh, right from the beginning. You know, I'm Net Gen to the Intel core, and the minute social media came to the fore, I was there. And there's nothing more important than community online. You know, it's really the reason, you know, one of the main reasons we have a show is that there's so many people out there that are engaged with this brand, and we love engaging them and talking to them as real people. I mean, I really owe it all to our community.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to follow up on, Nadia. So would you say that, you know, sort of your presence on these in social media, on these platforms, I mean, did that have a direct impact or direct influence in sort of helping you? It definitely did. There's no question about it.
No question about it. A huge, I mean, you need to engage your audience, and it really is that proof of concept. It's like when, you know, a network looks at that stuff and says, wow, there's really a segment of the population that's truly into this stuff, and that's what they need to know. You can't, I don't think it's really possible to get a show on TV without a social media following. Unless you're an A-lister or a B-lister, you can't exactly go up to the network and say, hey, I have this great concept. They need proof.
And what is it? What proof do they need? What are they looking for?
Well, I think they're looking for a sizable audience. They're looking for an engagement. How people are commenting on your brand, or the interaction. Because it's one thing to have let's say 1,000 fans, but none of them are really doing anything on your Facebook page, and it's stagnant. You have to kind of keep the conversation going and show that there's a real back and forth and an active interest in the brand or project.
And are you still on social media yourself, or do you sort of delegate that to someone in your crew or on your team? I mean, do you still partake? Do you still interact directly with your fans?
Absolutely, yeah, I totally partake. And but I do have a crew that entertains our community every day. But I check in every day.
Okay.
Multiple times a day.
Okay. And how are you able to balance that with with other people doing it and then you doing it? How does one know that it is this is actually Nadia G that I'm talking to?
Oh, great question. We use our initials. So on Facebook, if it's my community manager Ange, it'll be written AP : and then the comment, the post, whatnot. And when it's me, it's NG : and when it's Ella and so forth, we use the first letter of the first name, last name.
Okay, all right. So that everyone has that information.
Okay, cool.
And also out of curiosity, if let's say Food Network Canada did not pick up your show, would you have been able to keep doing what you were doing, or did you need TV to sort of come in and partner with you? For you really to make all this happen, would you have been able to do it without the support of what you have now?
Well, we would have definitely continued, and we would have said, you know what, we're going to pitch again, But luckily, one thing that helps a lot being in Canada is they have a lot of funding for the arts. And we were lucky enough to get, a grant. And we're talking big grants here in Canada. It's not like $50 and a cup of coffee. We're talking about like $250,000, $500,000. In some cases, you can apply for grants of $1 million.
Wow.
So it's not, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get those grants, but at least they're available to you, to keep the project alive. I mean, if we would have not gotten that grant from Telefilm while we were waiting for the TV show to come through, then we would have really been finished.
Mm-hmm. And you have this great segment called Get Famous Frittata, which is this like 2-part video, and it's funny, but it's also very, very true. I mean, it talks about if you want to, make a name for yourself, these are the things you have to do. And one of the things is, grow incredibly thick skin. You also say take 10 to 15 hours a day to work at your craft for 5 to 10 years to make it happen. Very true. So going back to the beginning, is this how you were sort of managing both worlds with these grants? Because, I mean, it must be very hard to sort of pay the bills and then also be at your computer this entire time.
Absolutely, yeah. It was definitely, the grants and getting some, I designed websites and did a lot of strategy and branding for other brands as well. So that helped to pay the bills and costs of being in this business. But yeah, the grants were definitely a huge part.
Right. And how did you learn this website design, and why did you have this as part of your set of skills?
Yeah, well, it's such an important skill set to have, the website design, branding, marketing, all really, really necessary tools. What happened was that when I had, the idea to do some online entertainment, I would contract that stuff out, and I never really liked what they returned to me. It cost me a fortune. It looked like crap. I'm an A-type personality. I notice if something is one pixel off, so I'm like, screw this, man. I'm just going to teach myself. And what's so awesome about the web is that you have all these tutorials available to you. You can really do anything online.
Oh, cool.
And you say you designed your current website?
That's right. I designed the current website. I design a lot of, I still to this day, all the rock this look that we do, where we feature all the fashion that I wear in a particular episode and where to get it or where to get something like it. I love designing. It's really a peaceful place for me, and it allows me to be like super anal and just focus and get everything in line perfectly.
We have brought up a few couple times here the Bitchin' Kitchen Cookbook, Rock Your Kitchen and Let the Boys Clean Up the Mess. And you wrote this book while your show was still sort of in the mobile internet form. So how important was it for you to have something tangible? And I must add, everything we see from you is also high quality. Yeah. So how important was it to have something tangible and high quality that was related to your show and is something that your fans could own?
It was a beautiful thing, and that was one of those lucky stories that, the publisher just came to us. They saw our web clips and our mobisodes and said, wow, this is a great concept. We want to do a cookbook. I would say 99% of the time that's not what happens. We're like, all right, well, that sounds great. I designed the cookbook myself as well. So that was a really interesting challenge because prior to that, I was doing all my design work in 72 DPI, which is basically web. It's a whole different world when you get into, high-res imagery and the photo shoots. It was a real challenge, but also really beautiful in a lot of ways because, the book, you can touch it. It's not vapor. It's not pixels. It also helped my family better understand what the hell I was doing because my family was like, well, what are you doing? You're making stupid videos on the internet. They don't, they didn't get it. They weren't online. So for them, the cookbook was a real opportunity to touch something. It's, this is what Nadia is doing.
And I'm sure, too, Nadia, with where you are now, people have this perception like, being on TV, having a book, and a huge fan base is like living a party lifestyle. We see these videos of you at these various food events, and it just looks so fun. But how much of that perception is really true, that it is a party lifestyle, and how much of it is you maybe by yourself creating content and a lot of hard work? Is it as sort of glamorous as it looks?
I'm still waiting for the big glamorous part. Yeah. No, I'm kidding partially. But yeah, a lot of it, I would say a lot of it is still me just sitting in front of my computer, getting the work done, thinking about the next contest online, designing stuff, thinking about, writing scripts. And then, on occasion you get the opportunities to really feel the rewards, which let's face it, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm in this business because I wanted to get famous. I want a limo to come and pick me up. I want to get kicked out of the VIP room or something. These are all things I want. But yeah, I would say it's when you finally have a moment to breathe from all the hard work and you step back and look at this little empire that you've created, or this, you can really say, wow, you know, this is awesome, and you feel the reward. But a lot of the time when you're in the thick of it, you know, you're just working, you're working your ass off.
Sure. And you had talked about earlier this new kind of pressure. Like in the beginning, it's a pressure to launch things, and then once you get things going, there's a new pressure to keep it going. So do you feel competition from other cooking personalities or people that are out there? Does that ever fuel you to kind of keep going, that competition?
I'm a very competitive person, that's for sure. But what's so fun about the Bitchin brand is that we're so unique, and it's like there is no competition.
Right. Yeah, it's very unique and very catchy. I love it. What are some of the misconceptions people have about being famous or recognized? You know, you mentioned earlier that there can be detractors, but what are some of the biggest misconceptions?
Well, the biggest misconception, and it comes back to what you mentioned earlier about sexism, is that, you know, some people out there imagine that I'm like some kind of hostess that got hired by the network and got offered some kind of, you know, no, man, you know, I worked my ass off. I write the scripts. I co-produce this series. So I would say that's one of the biggest ones, and not just for me, but for a lot of people who have made it in the entertainment industry, that somehow they were just so lucky and it just got handed to them on a silver platter. I would say in some cases, sure, there's nepotism in the industry, but most of the time, people work pretty damn hard for what they got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And it sounds like you've just done an amazing thing. I mean, you learned the web design and all of that, and you just weren't just going to just go the traditional route and pass out headshots. Do you ever go back home? And if so, what do they say now?
Go back home?
Yeah, to see some of the people that you went to high school with, and how do they perceive you now?
You know, I don't really see much of the people I went to high school with anymore. One of my girls, I only have one friend that I retained from high school, Mary Martinelli, and she chooses all the music for our episodes, which is really cool. You know, I'm not really friendly with the people I went to high school with that much. You know, they didn't really accept me then,
right.
And to this day, it's kind of like, you know, we're just very different people. There are a few, obviously, that will come to the launch parties and so on, but besides that, you can suck it.
Right, right. Yeah, I remember Dave, I think, told me this great story about Howard Stern. You always tell me that story, how the one bully of Howard Stern came back to him years later, and Howard was just like, what, you weren't my friend then?
Yeah, when I really needed you.
Yeah, so why now?
Yeah, no, exactly. You know what, man? Success is the best revenge. You know, it really, you know, and that's one of the things that I joke about in the Get Famous Frittata web clip, or we even redid that show for the TV show. Is you know. Oh wow, I forgot my line of thinking. I got all excited about thinking about Get Famous Frittata and frittatas. But yeah, it's basically, you know, revenge is a dish best served on television.
Right. I remember that part. And just as we wrap up here, Nadia, I noticed that you just give these flawless interviews. Was that always the case? Did you kind of have to practice at doing that and you just got more comfortable? Or it was just always something you're just comfortable speaking, delivering your message? How did you kind of manage to make that happen? Because you just do such a flawless delivery of all of the interviews that I've seen.
Oh, well, thank you. You know, I mean, I judge myself hard on the interviews I give. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to see it, I don't want to hear it. But yeah, I guess, you know, the more you talk about something, the better you get at talking about it. Is really what it comes down to, and I really enjoy it, you know, and I enjoy a lot. I really enjoy the interviews that I'm doing now because people are kind of familiarized with the brand, so it's not so much about, you know, just talking about basically introducing what my show is, I'm able to get into the nitty-gritty of things that really interest me. Like, for example, this interview has been fantastic. And, I've also had the opportunity to talk at, South by Southwest and to do panels that are more industry-related. So I'm really enjoying this next chapter, if you will.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you.
Yes.
We've enjoyed our time with you today. And,
absolutely. It's been great just sitting back and just listening to how you combine your craft, your love for cooking, and how you intermesh that with sort of your web skills, your creative skills, your design skills, business, branding, just everything across the board. I mean, you're just the full
really
package
amazing.
From start to finish, Nadia.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank
Congrats
you so much, and I just hope it inspires people out there too, and honestly, where there's a web, there's a way.
Nice.
So, grant, no grant, like I said, if you don't have the money, you invest the time, and, I really believe that if you keep your eye on the prize and are willing to put in the hard work that goes with it, you'll get what you want.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you. We've been speaking with TV chef and comedian Nadia G. For more on Nadia, please visit her site, bitchinlifestyle.tv, on Twitter at Bitchin Kitchen, Facebook.com/Bitchin Kitchen, and also on YouTube at Bitchin Kitchen Online. Thank you again, Nadia.
Thank you.
You rock.
Appreciate it. You
Thank
rock.
you.
Awesome.
All right. Wow, that was
great.
terrific. And then we're going to thank all of you for joining us on yet another edition of Film Courage. We look forward to being here with you next Sunday at noon on LATalkRadio.com. We're going to be speaking with blogger and writer Jeannie Villette Bowerman, as well as writer and Pulitzer Prize winner Douglas A. Blackman.
You can find out more about next week's guest by visiting jeannievb.com and slaverybyanothername.com. Also, many thanks to Ronan Rosner here at LA Talk Radio. Ronan built filmcourage.com for us, and he runs the board at the station as well.
He was stuck in the elevator today.
He was, you know?
And our heart sank, but he was rescued. He's okay.
Calm, cool, collected, as Ronan always is.
So send your good wishes to Ronan here in the studio.
And until next Sunday, have a great week.